hindsight being what it is for the Craig era, the movies should have gone Casino, Quantum, Spectre, No Time to Die, and then Skyfall. Because Skyfall's all about Bond being old and resurrection and all that shit. There is a terrific 5-act structure hidden amongst these movies had they been planned ahead of time. Casino Royale is still our amazeballs introduction to the newly promoted 007, learning his lesson about the importance of trust and that he's a protective outlier destined for service to the big picture at the personal expense of a regular home life. Quantum of Solace further elevating these themes by testing that duty to country against the desire for personal revenge against agents of the organization responsible for the death of Vesper. At the end of this second installment, Bond interrogates Green and learns all about the previously unnamed organization behind everything that has happened thus far.
I answered your questions. I told you what you wanted to know about Spectre.
The inciting incident that perfectly sets the stage for what's to come. But Spectre and No Time to Die, in this alternate reality, would have been a two-part story where Blofeld wins and gets the CNS online. So Spectre, movie 3, drastically escalates things. Bond takes what he learned from the last movie and manages to infiltrate a Spectre meeting where we are officially introduced to the head of the Squid, Ernst Stavro Blofeld, who absolutely has zero relation to Bond, definitely not brothers, because Bond already has a brother, goddammit.
I had a brother from Langley.
But it turns out that Spectre has already infiltrated MI6, and the new C is working with Blofeld to bring about a global surveillance state. Bond and allies try to stop them, and while they manage to give C his comeuppance, the CNS comes online and Blofeld gets away. Spectre has a global intelligence apparatus, and it becomes like Minority Report, right? Like, he shows his face anywhere and Spectre's gonna be able to find him. So where does he retreat to? He, of course, switches out his company car for his DB5 that doesn't have a tracker and heads to his childhood home of Skyfall. This time for a clear purpose and not just because a psychologist mentioned it a few days ago.
Skyfall.
Far off the beaten path where this new Eye of Sauron won't find him. For the first time ever, Bond has lost and has retreated with his tail between his legs, a la The Empire Strikes Back. Blofeld wins. The bad guy wins. We've never had that in a Bond movie. It ends on a downer note. So that then in the follow-up, it could then be Bond overcoming impossible obstacles to save the day. So this whole Spectre storyline climaxes with No Time to Die, in which Bond is now facing a task that is not only impossible, but arguably the highest stakes of any James Bond story ever, battling a Spectre that has finally achieved its ultimate goal of complete global control. Global destruction is one thing, but I would argue that global tyranny is far worse, and I'm sure Bond himself would agree, but he no longer has MI6 because MI6, as well as every other intelligence agency worldwide, is now a part of this tyrannical system, meaning Bond has officially gone rogue, as we all know he is one to do when he has to, actually bringing to life that amazingly wasted visual metaphor from Mr. White.
You're a kite dancing in a hurricane, Mr. Bond.
But he has his friends and allies. Q, M, Moneypenny, and Tanner also go rogue, and of course Felix Leiter joins them too.
And also smoking hot CIA agent or scientist with big tits.
M informs them of the one hope they have, something only she was privy to, something she herself began developing in secret after Spectre completely took her by surprise back in Quantum.
What the hell is this organization, Bond? How can they be everywhere and we know nothing about them?
A DNA targeting weapon that has been secretly developed at an MI6 black site. It's only a matter of time before Spectre gets their hands on it, but at the same time they can use this technology to kill all of Spectre all at once. Now the title No Time to Die actually has some real meaning behind it, as our band of heroes have no choice but to act quickly to save humanity. With Skyfall acting as their new headquarters, our band of rogue misfits carefully craft their plan to steal the weapon and use it on Spectre and save the world. It's exciting, it's classy, it's fun, and Bond fans unanimously agree that it's the greatest James Bond film of all time, and it's #1 on everyone's list, but wet blanket hipsters still claim OHMSS is better because it doesn't chase trends by trying to be Mission Impossible, and they also don't like that Bond didn't cry in this movie. That is until that story is topped by the ultimate James Bond film, the GoldenEye of this 5-part series, Skyfall, the one with the theme of "You're old now, Bond. Spectre is gone. The world is saved. You can retire now. We don't need you anymore. In the wake of No Time to Die, there is peace." So Bond is bored as hell. He is indeed an older fella that has run out of bad guys to fight, so he fills his time with what he does best: booze, fast cars, fast women, and hitting the casino as often as possible. Meanwhile, there's a theme that Bond has made even more irrelevant because in this digital age of DNA targeting weaponry and drones, Bond has been made redundant.
I'll hazard I can do more damage on my laptop sitting in my pajamas before my first cup of Earl Grey than you can do in a year in the field.
Oh, so why do you need me?
However, when an ex-00 agent shows up to seek revenge against M and MI6 by stealing
the computer drive containing the identity of almost every NATO agent embedded in terrorist organizations across the globe,
Bond is put on the case. They know where the stolen list may be and they send in Bond to get it back. Q, of course, suggests they just drone the building, but M needs to be completely sure the list is either retrieved or destroyed.
What happened?
They're on the train, Mom.
What do you mean on the train?
I mean they're on top of a train.
When it appears that Bond may fail, M orders Q to hack the train's computer system and derail it. But little does she know the list thief has already transmitted its contents to an unknown recipient, thereby needlessly sacrificing her greatest agent while balls deep in the hubris that technology has won the day. And y'all know the story from here, which would for the most part be Skyfall as is. Bond ends up doing the "you only live twice" thing where he's believed to have been killed, but he survives and heads back to Skyfall, back to the place without technology where maybe he will stay, maybe he will retire and get out of the game while the getting is good. But when MI6 is bombed and their embedded agents begin being killed off worldwide, Bond comes back to once again highlight that fine line between the goodness of serving the big picture through self-sacrifice versus the evil of sacrificing others for your own corrupt ends, and how a good man can fall to such darkness with just a little push. Our villain Silva is the most dangerous villain of the Craig era because he easily thrives in both Bond's realm of practical spycraft as well as Q's digital domain. He's all of the best qualities of Bond, Q, and M operating a fully realized shadow version of MI6. This would undoubtedly be the most meaningful Bond film of all time, combining the best of the best themes, including his relevancy in today's digital world, coupled with a villain that is his equal but opposite shadow, all wrapped up in the metaphorical brilliance of Skyfall itself, representing that temptation always looming over Bond to choose the comfort of a normal home life over being Britain's savior. Speaking of which, what about Bond dying? Does Bond make the ultimate sacrifice? Maybe, but I believe there is no stronger ending for this 5-film series than exactly how Skyfall, such as it is, concludes, with M telling Bond that there is still lots to be done, gloriously nailing the overall theme of the eternal struggle between chaos and order, and that Bond is still relevant and always will be because there is no lasting peace, and good people will always need bad men to protect them against the forces of evil.
It was the job we were chosen for.
The general problem is that they went in going, hey, we're going to reboot the franchise. Great. What does that mean? I don't know. And then they go to the next movie and they're like, let's do a direct sequel. Great. And then they did a one-off, which was great. It's kind of the same thing with Star Wars. You do wish that when it came to the sequel trilogy that they had written out like, okay, this is kind of what is going to happen in all 3 of these movies. This thing that we're setting up in the first movie, this is what it is in the last movie, but it just never does.